Hello there, I'm your host, Tiffany Gilliland, an Australian business and mindset coach with 10 years' experience in online marketing and the creator of the Business Bravery Framework. I help coaches like you to be brave so you can stop dreaming and start doing it that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. In today's episode, I want to share my experiences with reclaiming my Sundays. Okay, so this is specifically tackling my own overworking tendencies as well as dealing with anxiety and the Sunday Scaries. This, of course, means talking about the thoughts, feelings, and reframes, the new action steps, the before and after of it all. And I just want to say right up front, this is not one of those magical, I had a plan and I enacted the plan perfectly. And don't worry, guys, you can do it too things. This is actually a step into reality, or at least reality for most of us who are not perfect guru people, right? And so there are some successes, there are some failures, and there's the overall kind of lesson to learn from this is, okay, how do we move through this when we fail? Just because creating behavior change, especially something like this that you want to stick for the longer term, it's going to take a longer term approach and it might not, you know, happen overnight, but it will happen. Oh my gosh, that is a cliche. Is it not? But anyway, so the other thing that I will be sharing is how my business bravery framework sort of fits into all of this and how that has the tools for some of the reframing and the planning and all of that kind of stuff. So, this episode will be especially useful for those of us. I say us, I can't say you, because those of us who struggle with overworking and to achieve our goals, doing too much, over delivering for clients as well, perhaps even doing a bit too much for the people in your life personally, because you are an amazing, capable person. And sometimes when you're super capable, sometimes the people around you, they're like, oh, don't worry, Tiff will handle it. Or, Joanne will handle it. And I'm just picking names here. Or these are not people I know, but just, oh, Sharon can handle it. So yeah, just for those of us in this kind of situation, right? And if you're the kind of person who doesn't have to be told to hustle harder because you have a natural tendency to hustle, it's like the hustle on switch is maybe always on, like you're excited to get to work, you're willing to work harder than everyone else for your goals. And in fact, part of what this whole process has been for me has been working out how to work smarter rather than harder. And I have mixed feelings about that phrase of, work smarter, because it feels like if you're then working too hard, suddenly you're dumb. And that's not what I mean, but it's just perhaps working more efficiently. There we go. That's a nicer way of saying it. But I know that whole working smarter than harder thing, it is a catchy catchphrase that your brain can kind of hold on to, right? So if you find yourself doing all of the hours and not making all of the money, if you notice that you're just thinking about work when you should be with family and friends, or like when you're with family and friends, and then when you're working, you're thinking about the family and friends that you probably should be spending more time with, then this might help you, because I am going to be going into some of my time management strategies and sort of how I do what I'll say I'll do. Okay. And if you just find yourself wishing for sort of more work-life balance, but you don't have time for that, right? I've been there. Okay, please know. I wrote that kind of for me, because that has been me at different times. It's like, oh, I just want work-life balance, but I don't have time for that. I've just got to get this thing done. because this is the whole thing about that behavior change, and behavior change that you want to last. It means doing different things, things that you haven't done before, and that actually takes more energy than just doing what you've always done, because the brain and the body gets used to expending energy in certain ways, and so then it's harder to change, right? So that's why you can end up in those situations of, I don't have time for that, even though it's something that you actually really need. And we all know that exercise routines, I don't have time for that. And yet it's something that you need for the longer term, just perhaps not as easy to do and not as easy to see the payoff in the shorter term. Am I right? So the other thing is maybe you have like too many people relying on you. Okay, so there might be some stuff in here about drawing boundaries that you might be able to take from. And as always, anyone who's experienced the thoughts or feelings of like not being enough, not doing enough, not being worthy of success, and potentially if you are someone who wakes up in the morning already behind before the day has started, that was a fun little repeating pattern of mine that I will be talking about as part of the context of what I've been working through for this Reclaiming My Sundays experiment. So the key takeaways for today, we're looking at building a business that serves you in terms of working hours, energy, and work-life balance, finding your ideal work day, work week, and work month. Although I probably won't be going through all of the, you could do this or you could do that, but there will be a lot here that you can take as inspiration for that. And if nothing else, I hope this episode serves as that inspiration. Other key takeaways will be planning ahead, creating systems and routines to make things easier. And I create these systems and routines to reduce decision making, right? Things like, oh, hey, the bathroom looks kind of dirty. Should I clean that today? It's like, no, I have a system. Oh, is it this particular day? No, then I don't have to do it. Okay, we'll leave it for that day. Things like that for food and that kind of thing. In your business, this can be essential too, because, I have things like Content Creation Monday. It's like, do I have that client call today? No, it's Content Creation Day, and I am here on a Monday recording this on Content Creation Monday. Woohoo. So the other key takeaways are going to be, spotting negative thoughts, understanding your own patterns with thoughts, procrastination, that kind of thing, and just how to work through situations when your subconscious isn't on board and what that can look like before and after, as definitely the subconscious has been at play through this process. Okay. All right. So before I get into all of the fun stuff, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be talking a lot about, or a bit about, the Business Bravery Framework. And I'm going to be teaching that whole process coming up in June, from June 24th to 26th. And I won't go into a big deal about that now, but I will go into more details at the end of the podcast. Or if you're interested, you can come to my social media. By the time you hear this, it'll be all over social media, so you'll be able to get some details on the website and everything about that. But basically what we're going to be doing the 24th to the 26th of June will be planning out Q3 together. So this whole planning and, shooting for the moon, landing on the stars, and unearthing the fears, the negative thinking, the stuff that's holding us back, reframing it and working through it ahead of time, so we have an action plan for when it comes up during the doing phase, the implementation phase of the actual quarter. And this is the same process that I keep using. I use it every day, every week, and month and quarter, right? And this is the same approach that I used for making this plan for reclaiming my Sundays, right? This is part of what I'm doing for this quarter, for Q2, okay? So if you want to learn the whole thing, it's going to be in these 3 30-minute like live calls, so that you've got time to think about things overnight. There's going to be like meditations, connecting with your future self, all of this manifestation goodness, everything. Anyway, I'm going to tell you more about it at the end, but I just wanted to let you know that that is an option. You can join us. It's free to join us, and it'll be happening in the Business Bravery Facebook group. So come and find us, Business Bravery with Tiff, and yeah, all of the good stuff. Okay, now let's get into everything that we have planned for this episode. And I realize now I should have turned on a timer because I'm not quite sure how long I've been talking for. Anyway, it's possible I've been talking for over 10 minutes. All right, okay. Getting into the goodness. All right. So the situation about my Sundays and obviously like this whole time management stuff, like Sundays might not be your problem. You can apply this to whatever you're trying to work out to make your time work better. But if reclaiming your Sundays is something that has drawn you to this episode, then I invite you to just sort of sit down and take a look at, say, okay, what has caused you to start working on a Sunday? Because this has not always been my approach in my business, right? However, for years and years in my business, I've always planned the week ahead on a Sunday. Okay. However, since I started my podcast a year ago, podcast related tasks crept into my Sundays. And then slowly Sunday became a work day, right? At least like half work, half doing things around the house. But it went from planning out the week ahead, which is like 1 hour, that seemed okay, right? Maybe doing some planning tasks or some bookkeeping tasks, that kind of thing. And especially when I had a part-time day job, I really needed that time on the Sunday to just, hey, this part is for my business. And, I would take some time on a Sunday morning and then I'd still have time with my husband on a Sunday afternoon. So one of the cool things is that my husband is a night owl, so he sleeps in, so I can work in the mornings and he doesn't even know. So, however, things just changed when it came to the podcast, like having to prep episodes for editing and that kind of stuff. So Sunday became a work day. Now, because I also take Wednesdays and Saturdays off, I thought, okay, I've got 2 days off during the week. That's okay. However, my husband works 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And so, and his kind of routines and his energy is sort of Saturday, he doesn't want to do anything. Sunday, he wants to hang out. Whereas me, it was like Saturday, I didn't want to do anything. And then Sunday, I was working. So yeah, and like I thought that that was going to be okay for a few months. However, it's 12 months now, and it's like, okay, something needs to change. The other thing that is impacting this situation that's causing me to want to make a change, okay? Oftentimes when we want to make change, it's sort of like connecting with the why. Why is this important for me to change? Why am I making this decision? Because when it gets hard, and I'm going to tell you about how it got hard, then it's going to really rely on being connected with that why as to making the changes that you really want to make, and sticking with it when it's not easy, when you stumble, when you fail. So the 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 other situation for like the other thing that caused me wanting to make this change at least for a while and test it out is that I really overworked myself in March, right? And there's a podcast that is out, I think it's number 46, right? So I talked about how in March I had Bravery Month and I was running all of these workshops and everything was going okay until it wasn't, because I was trying to, it's really funny. It's like I was going into launch mode, and like for some reason, when I go into launch mode, it's like my energy ramps up to like 1,000%. I'm trying to do the work of 10 people energy wise. And for whatever reasons, I don't have the training for that. I think there might be some people who can do that, but that's not something that I can do, not something I can sustain. And so I wasn't sleeping well. And, I definitely, I ended up with probably adrenal fatigue and chronic pain. So I had to pull back on everything. And all of a sudden, I'm going from working, 6-hour work days to being able to just maybe get 3 hours of work done. However, it takes me 8 hours to get the 3 hours of work done because there's breaks and things that would normally take me 5 minutes were taking an hour and things like that. So I was like, okay, I need to look after my health. So by me not understanding my limits and overworking myself, I had to really, really look at what I'm doing and how I can have more rest and relaxation time and things like that, right? So yeah, this is how I got around to this idea of like, okay, I want to get my Sundays back. I need to get my Sundays back. Okay, at least back in order. So to do this, I had to come up with a plan and I had to work through some thoughts that came up, which was like, oh, I don't know if I can fit everything in if I take Sundays off. I don't know if I can get all of my work done if I take Sundays off. I don't know how this can work, right? So this is part of the Business Bravery Framework. It's like, okay, we have a plan, we're shooting for the moon, and everybody's shooting for the moon looks different, and what shooting for the moon is can look different for all of us. And in my case at this point, it's the okay, I want to take Sundays off. I don't want Sundays to be a work day anymore, right? So that meant that when I usually have these things come up, and especially like planning out launches and things, it's like, oh, I don't have time, I can't handle that. Because like I think my brain's biggest concern at this point was, oh, hang on, I am planning out like, okay, I'm going to do the work on these work days, but what if that then overworks me, right? The brain's like trying to protect me. And it's like, no, if you don't do it on Sunday, then you'll be overworked during the week and you'll have all of this adrenal fatigue and chronic pain again and stuff. So this means coming up with a plan and planning ahead. Okay, so this meant sort of sitting down with a Google Calendar, sort of a blank one, and planning out how certain systems could look and things like that. So this also meant that, okay, so the Sunday work, some of it needs to go somewhere, well, actually, all of it needs to go somewhere else. And the part that is the planning part, I decided, okay, so what if we did that on Friday afternoon? So I planned the week ahead on Friday afternoon. This is something that I had originally tried to do. However, I found myself always fitting in more and more work on the Friday, and Friday became my catch-up day. So this is some of the value of the Business Bravery Framework is that you do this for long enough and you start seeing your repeating patterns. And so some of my repeating patterns were planning too much for Monday and Tuesday and then using Thursday and Friday to catch up, right? For some reason, I was always like trying to get ahead, trying to get more work done, all of that kind of stuff. And between calls and then trying to get all the content that I wanted to get done and all of that stuff, especially with the podcast, right? The podcast can be like another like part-time side gig, part-time job in and of itself in some ways of just, getting podcasts edited and out and that kind of stuff. Plus the switching to solo podcasts, that actually takes a bit more time and planning and stuff for me. I can't just have, four high-level dot points and be like, okay, let's do this and talk because I mean, and I probably need to try and move to this, but it's just I'm trying to make sure that I have something that works logically and cohesively. Otherwise, I go off on tangents and then I think, did I cover this? Did I cover that? It's not quite the same way that I do like my 20-minute lives, that kind of thing. So, and as I'm saying that, I've got my dot points and I've completely gone off script. And now I'm sitting here thinking, what have I covered? What haven't I covered? So, okay. All right, let's see. So then, I had to come up with this plan. Oh, that's right. So understanding my overworking tendencies, especially between my planner self versus my doer self, and I talk about this a lot. My planner self was a lot more overambitious than my doer self, right? Like planner self just thought that the person I was going to be the next week was just going to have so much more energy, could do everything, she wouldn't have bad days. And, like for me with my chronic health stuff, and I can have brain fog that can slow me down, although I'm doing some things on the health side to work on that, and I've seen improvements, which has been amazing. However, it's just like I have to plan for sometimes those eventualities. So, yes, understanding that about myself. So then the challenge becomes that so Friday can no longer be a catch-up day. So then if Sunday tasks, especially the planning tasks, are moving to Friday, then that means that, okay, I need to make sure that happens, and I need to not overplan my Mondays and Tuesdays. So do you see how like one decision of I'm going to reclaim my Sundays now comes through to all of these other changes that I need to make? And so we have a lot of things going on, and this is where long-term behavior change can just become a bit more complex, and why it's not easy for most of us to just turn on a dime and go, okay, this isn't, this is going to happen. However, I did find that week one was easier than expected. And oftentimes this is the case. It's that oh yeah, we have this new routine. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. It's exciting because it's new and different. And my brain definitely loves new and different. So at this point in time, this wasn't too bad. The other thing that I had to do was, I had to plan less tasks during the week. Okay. So that meant instead of having Friday as my catch-up day, that meant that I needed to have catch-up time each day. So like not planning like the last hour of each day during the week so that I could use that for overflow and catch-up time for when things come up, right? And yeah, and then sort of look at maybe Thursday afternoon or Friday morning as my catch-up time. And then Friday afternoon is planning the week ahead, right? And I actually found this was really amazing, but I'm jumping ahead a little bit. The other part that I had to work out was the podcasting stuff. And that's where I had to look at perhaps for 1 week of the month, I don't have just content creation Mondays, I have content creation Monday and Tuesday, just for 1 week of the month. That's perhaps another day where I don't do calls. So and that's something that I'm testing out. The other thing I'm testing out is perhaps doing like on my planning day where I'm planning out posts for the month ahead, I'm also planning out the podcasts and perhaps getting some of that prep done, which is like, titles, descriptions, some of that sort of thing. I know some people have like advised that you can do all of that stuff like right after recording the podcast with the guest, you can sit down and do the title, description, everything. But I mean, that's an extra hour and a half of work when I've already done over like sometimes an hour and 15 minutes doing a recording session. And that's just not time that I always have. And so, yeah, this is why I kind of do it in this batch like this. So, yeah, that is just some of the things that I'm experimenting with. And I say this language to say that I'm experimenting with how this looks, how this feels while I'm doing it, and what sort of like my thoughts and feelings and things that might come up in terms of like objections in my brain of doing these things. And I've already had some of those on all of these things. However, the Friday afternoon planning worked really well when I changed my sort of I changed my plan. I changed my like the identity of Fridays. That's going to sound so strange. But like I have content creation Mondays. Like I love these little systems where I don't have to think as much. Like I want my creative thinking to be around like what episodes am I going to do, and how can I help people sell things, and also my clients, and how can I help them with their selling and things like, and that sort of stuff. So that's why I'm happy to remove a lot of the extraneous decision making, right? And have that kind of locked in for 3 months at a time, and then I can always review and change up the system, right? So that's where, like I said, like Friday catch-up day was no longer a Friday catch-up day. Friday's planning day, right? And that was a lot of fun, actually. I was surprised. And so then, Thursday afternoon is more catch-up day. But I found that by having Friday as planning day, my brain really adjusted quite quickly to I can't plan as many tasks. Let's plan less tasks so that this system works. And this is a first for me because usually I go at it like, oh, I've got to do all the things. However, my health issues coming in meant that I really had no choice. I had to plan to do less each day just so that I could keep things moving forward. And yeah, so that worked really well. And I found that planning on the Friday worked really well for me because it meant like on the weekend, I didn't have to worry about what was coming up on the week or anything like that. I could enjoy the weekend even more because I knew the next week was already planned out. And that was a lot of fun. Okay, so now let's go into week 2 because I feel like I have talked about week 1 more than enough. So yeah, hopefully I haven't missed anything. But basically week 1 was a lot easier than I expected, but this is to be expected. For me, at least, the week 1 of a new routine is always super easy because it's fun, it's exciting, it's new, it's different. My brain loves that. Week 2 is where the rubber hits the road. Am I right? Because then it's not quite as fun anymore. We've already done it once. Or maybe, week 2, week 3 is where things start getting real. And I've got 5 of these weeks to go through. I won't drone on as long as I did for week 1. Don't worry. Week 2, I've called feeling the wobbles, right? So week 2 just wasn't as much fun as week 1, but I also had some issues like health issues and sort of hormonal issues at play. And so I was kind of dealing with a lot of brain fog that week, quite a bit of kind of depression, however, like not depression like I've had in the past, like depression and then, I'd have, then I'd have like the kind of depression I have that like when I have the right meal, it just fixes itself, right? That's how I know it's sort of more of a hormonal or nutritional situation. And because like nothing had changed in my work, there was nothing stressing me out, apart from my health issues. And, like I've been through this where it's like, okay, my health is telling me this. I have to shift back. We're shifting back into first gear business mode. And that means bare minimum everything. All right. Just until we get through this. And that's how I have to shift and adapt around things that are not in my control. So the part that really wasn't fun on this particular week was the Sunday itself, right? So this Sunday I didn't have like any work to do. It was great. I'd done the planning on Friday. That worked out really well. However, I felt so uncomfortable on the Sunday, right? Right? My brain was just telling me it's like this isn't who we are. We don't do nothing on a Sunday. This isn't what we do. It felt like, and you might judge me for this, but it felt like razor blades running down my arms. Like it just like felt really wrong, which might also sound like the sounds of addiction, right? Addiction to work. Okay. So yeah, this is one of the reasons why I know I need to change these habits, right? I felt, down, depressed, and I definitely like I had the Sunday scaries for the week ahead, and I haven't had those in years. And I thought I hadn't had those in years because of my business. It's like I'm running my own business. There's nothing to be worried about. However, no, I think the reason that I didn't have the Sunday scaries was because I planned out the week ahead of time on a Sunday. And that gave me this sense of control, this sense of, okay, everything's all right. Like basically all of these, I had a lot of thoughts about that. Okay. And those thoughts all helped me to feel prepared for the week ahead. So it was really interesting. My brain just was like, oh, this doesn't feel good. So the thoughts I was having was like, I'm not prepared for this week. I can't handle this week. I'm going to fail this week. I'm not in work mode. I won't be on top of everything, right? My brain was freaking out, right? And this is the subconscious, okay? This is the subconscious. It's like, this isn't who we are. Something is wrong. And clearly there is, a leopard who's going to jump out and eat us, right? It doesn't know the difference between the leopard and okay, something is different, change is happening, and oh, this change is making me feel nervous and oh, fight or flight. So this meant sitting down and doing some journaling, right? And like it's possible that I am prepared for this week because I'd already planned the Friday out, right? So logically, my brain knows actually we are prepared for this week. However, like my body was just like really not into this. Okay. So this is where the subconscious is not, on board. Okay. So it's possible that I can handle this week. It's possible that I will succeed. These are the reframes, right? It's possible that I can be in work mode while taking a break on a Sunday, and it's possible that I will be on top of everything. And so this is that process in the Business Bravery Framework where we do the check-ins. We, when stuff comes up, we, pull out the journal, we work through it, or we do a meditation, we connect with our future self, all of that good stuff, right? You've got a range of tools that you can go to. A lot of what I was going through was definitely hormonal, though. So I was really aware of that. And so I guess I just want to say, like, even though like I'm talking about now of, like the reframes and everything, that's a lot easier when you're not in the real hormonal dips of your cycle, right? I don't know how much I want to tell you guys, but if you know, if if you're like me, you have PCOS, you have irregular periods, things like that, you're going to know what some of those real hormonal shifts can be like, and how it's like nothing has changed in the outside world, yet everything in your brain has changed the perception. So sometimes it's a matter of just knowing that and just knowing, okay, this is temporary. I'm going to get through this and that kind of thing. What I found interesting though was like, despite me feeling really uncomfortable, I didn't feel the urge to just like open something up and do some work. I was using this against myself to make myself feel bad or something like that. So yes, I stayed in the discomfort because I wanted to keep this as a new habit, and I wanted to give my brain evidence. Like when it has these kinds of freakouts, sometimes you need to give it evidence of like, actually, this is okay to be a little uncomfortable in this situation, right? Because I really didn't think like in the mood I was in pulling out any work, I wouldn't have done any good work anyway. So yes. So like I said, the power of the Business Bravery Framework to give you just like help you understand these repeating patterns. You're not doing things on autopilot anymore. You're looking at things and going, okay, actually, here's what's going on. I can see these patterns. I know, I'm cross-checking things and I get what's happening. So that was week 2. Now, week 3, this is where this like week 3 I worked a little. I was about to call it failure week, but yeah, this is where I failed. Okay, so on week 3, on the Sunday, I did 1 to 2 hours of work, not the 4 to 5 hours that I was starting to do each week, but I did 1 to 2 hours, and it was just uploading some podcast posts, right? I had to catch up on something for a colleague. I was being featured in her newsletter. I hadn't sent her the stuff. I had been sick that last week, so I was a little bit behind. And I caught up on a little bit of bookkeeping stuff according to my notes, although I am surprised. Although actually I was probably feeling a bit better after the week before. So, and I guess I just want to say, like, it's really funny because I procrastinated on writing up this episode outline because of the couple of backslides I had. This was not the only one. And I failed a little, but I realized actually I had a call with someone just this week where I was helping her with, doing the time blocking and planning out a system that works for her and, all of her different categories of work and all of that good stuff. And while I was telling her, I was like, now you need to be aware, like, this is not okay, I'm going to do something new and it's going to work. Like, this is your new experiment. There's going to be failures. It's never going to be perfect. And as I was telling her this stuff, I was like, oh, actually, you know what? I can write up this podcast episode. I can stick to this plan and not just not do it, because the failures are part of the process. I just want to say that the failures are part of the process. And you haven't failed because you are not disciplined enough. You haven't failed because you're not good enough. It doesn't mean you're not worthy. as a human being, okay? This is part of the brain, right? The way the brain works is that it wants to go the path of least resistance, right? That path of least resistance is the habit that you've been doing for the last however many years, or maybe even however many months, but just know that like it's the pattern that it's used to, right? Which means it's going to go towards doing a little bit of work on a Sunday, right? Because that expends less energy, like I was saying before. However, when we're doing behavior change, it takes a bit more energy in the beginning to start the new routine. And while that's exciting at first, usually 2 to 3 weeks in, that's where you can come up with these hiccups. Some other hiccups that I've had in the past have been health related because my brain knows that if I have some sort of pain, I'll have to slow down. I might have to change things. I won't be able to keep up the pace or things like that. So yeah, sometimes it can come from your family. It's like all of a sudden you need to look after your family, who you have kids who need some extra help or something like that. And so this is where understanding that failure is part of the process, like these missteps, they're not even failures, right? This is just, some days success, some days not quite as successful, but that's still the process of putting in these new changes, okay? The other thing that I want to talk about here is that like my inner perfectionist, like she's definitely crying about this. Okay, so just know like we're not all perfect and everything like that. But like I said, like just because you have a goal, a plan, or have even worked through the thoughts and feelings ahead of time, it doesn't mean that change goes perfectly, right? This is what we do in the Business Bravery Framework. It's like we work through the thoughts and feelings ahead of time so you can take more action. It doesn't mean that those things like that you've worked through them and it's going to be like, oh, this is awesome. Now that's never going to happen. It's like, no, no, now you have a plan for when that happens, right? So with this stuff that I'm talking about here for that week, I just want to say that like this is normal, okay? This is the brain doing the brain stuff, okay? You're stepping into a new identity and the brain will challenge that too. And yeah, like it's like setting up a new exercise routine, but it's like a routine in your business and the brain, there needs to be some room for failure and missteps. And so the power is how you recover and move through it and stick to the plan because the stuff, it just does take a longer term approach to it. There was something else that I was going to say, but I have forgotten it. It's not in my dot points. We'll see if it comes up as I move ahead. So oh, actually, that was the other thing I just want to say. So for me, even though like I worked a little, I still consider this like a success because it's not as many hours as I was doing. So that also helps in the reframing of keeping moving forward. I used to be the kind of person that it was like, oh, well, I did a little bit of work. Oh, no. Well, that's the whole plan gone then. And I have to start again from the beginning, or, that resets everything to zero. And that kind of thinking doesn't help us to move forward and keep taking action. So just watch out for some of those thoughts and that kind of stuff. So now we move into week 4, and this will be a very quick recap because basically I was really unwell this week. So that forced the issue. There was no working. There was just watching Netflix on Sunday. And can I call that a win? At least I didn't have to force myself to work through it. So perhaps that is a win. Not that we have wins and losses necessarily, but perhaps that's a success. Perhaps we can celebrate that as more evidence for the brain that we can just take the time and just relax and all that stuff. On the other side of things, though, there was no Sunday scaries. There was no I should be working because, I was really unwell. So my brain's like, oh, when we're unwell, this is what we do. I sound like some kind of weird robot, but this might be the downside of years of mindset work and being aware of these things. However, it's still so much better than just living life on autopilot. So, all right, week 5, which is back on trackish. This is the last week that I have to talk about before recording. Okay. So back on track-ish, right? So I'm recording this on a Monday, and this is a couple of weeks before you're hearing it. However, I have to say, that I did 90 minutes of work yesterday, right? So and just ironically, I was writing up the outline for this episode about reclaiming my Sundays. And I need to tell you that because I think that that is amusing. And I tried to not do that a couple of weeks ago because I was like, no, I can't do an episode about reclaiming my Sundays and actually work on that episode on a Sunday. That would be the height of hypocrisy. However, that is just not what, like, it's just how it happened. It seemed to be how it had to happen. I just wasn't able to switch that off. So this was a decision because I've been sick. I've been working the 3-hour days, and the podcast recording has kept getting pushed, and it's later than it normally is, and the recording, the editing, all that stuff. And so, and because I have a launch coming up, it just was like, okay, I think just sitting down for, and I think, yeah, I set a timer for 25 minutes and just, I'd already started this during the week. However, I hadn't got it finished. And so I just wanted to come and write these out. So I find that doing this process sort of helps me for doing the recording and just helps me sort through my thoughts. So yeah, I don't know. Judge me for that if you want. This is, like I said, this is something that is like, okay, I can see what's happening here. But at least with that 90 minutes of work, like I still had time with my husband. We got the shopping done. I got the bathroom clean and, just like caught up on some stuff. And then I did this little bit of work just so that I'd be able to get up on Monday morning, record a podcast episode, and just have the rest of the day like start off really well on a work perspective, which since I've been having the health stuff and the 3-hour work days, I just hadn't felt that for weeks, and I just really wanted to feel that feeling. So that's why I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this time. However, like I still spent a good chunk of time with my husband. He was also a bit unwell, so he wasn't too concerned about me doing a little bit of work. In fact, he didn't even really notice. So we're all good. So again, I still consider this a success, right? The amount of time that I'm working on a Sunday has massively decreased, and it's still something that I'm working on, right? It's still a work in progress for me, but it feels good, and things are heading in the right direction. Okay. And in fact, I didn't talk about this too much, but I've been working with a nutritionist. I've already taken some steps. It's helped me with some of the health stuff. And so, yeah, like I think this might be a week of perhaps more than 3-hour work days. We will see. I shouldn't say that out loud. That'll jinx it. However, I just wanted to, yeah, to say that this is, like I said at the beginning of the episode, this is not this perfect example of, oh my gosh, I had a plan and I did the plan and now I'm amazing and you can do it too, guys. So, okay, although actually for me, that is the story for me because even though it doesn't look perfect on the outside, I want to be real about the process, and I want to be real about, this is a work in progress. And in fact, after, another, like at the end of this 3-month period, it's going to look completely different. I'm sure of that. Hopefully it won't backslide unless I make that decision, and I make that from a place of, okay, I've made this decision, as opposed to, oh no, oh, I've just got more work to do, that kind of stuff. So it's not perfect yet, but that's completely okay. I do feel on top of everything, right? And I'm having more relaxation. I'm connecting with my hubby. The next step is to actually incorporate hobbies and things back into my weekends. I have a lot of hobbies that don't get hardly any time just because the business is so creative and fun, and it's like my hobby, but one that I get paid for. So yeah, creating behavior change for the long term, it just requires this long-term approach, as I've said. And it means like recovering and still moving forward and not using those missteps to beat yourself up, to tell yourself that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that you can't do this, that you should just give up, that it's all or nothing, black or white, right? There are stages of gray. Is that, yeah. there are shades of gray in between this whole, okay, I have a plan and I'm doing the plan. And you can apply this to just about anything in your business. The same with launches, the same with just, starting your newsletter or starting your podcast or just, getting your content done. Like this is a whole approach for doing all of these things, right? And this is where the Business Bravery Framework just works out so well for planning, for behavior change, for the negative thinking and the reframes. So now, if you want to know a bit more about the masterclasses that are going to be coming up in June, right? And when you hear this, it should be in a week or two from this episode. So I will give you more of those details now if you want to hear about them. So you can come and find out the details at tiffanygstudios.com, right? Or find me on Instagram at tiffanygstudios, TIFFANY, G for golf, STUDIOS, and no underscores, no spaces, that kind of stuff. So all lowercase. Or come and join us in the Business Bravery Facebook group, because I'm going to be doing these live classes, and I'm going to be doing, the plan is at the time of recording to do these on Zoom and then to have them live stream into Facebook. However, I've done that before and I've had issues with the live stream working. So there'll be kind of a link to join, I think, for Zoom. So you can join me live on there, or you can watch it, or you can watch the replays, right? For those where the times don't sort out. Like I said, it's going to be 3 30-minute live classes. So I used to teach this in a 90-minute class. And if you would prefer just 90 minutes, contact me, get a recording, and you can work through it at your own pace. Right. However, for those who want the live fun experience and want to do the 3 30-minute things, we're going to have so much fun. I'm very, very excited to be running it this way, and especially excited because it shouldn't be as much of an impact on my health to run it this way. So the classes will happen the 24th, the 25th, and 26th of June. Sorry, I should say June 24, 25, 26. I know Americans say dates differently. So at 5 p.m. US Eastern, so that's New York time. And then that correlates in Australian Eastern Standard Time to 7 a.m. on the 25th, 26th, and 27th of June. Recordings, of course, will be available. You'll be able to find them in the Facebook group, and maybe I'll also send out links to the Zoom replay as well, just in case that live stream doesn't happen, but I can also upload them in the group as well. So recordings will be available and they'll be everywhere. What we're going to do is we're going to go through this process of setting brave goals and just like dreaming big and shooting for the moon, landing on the stars, but not beating yourself up for not landing on the stars the first time out. This is very different to SMART goals because we don't play in the realm of achievable, and we do that for a couple of awesome reasons. Number one, for many of us, the realm of the achievable does not get us motivated to take action. So that's why we play in this realm of brave and thinking really big. Also, thinking big can challenge your creativity to change up the way you do things in your business because you're thinking big and you can make big leaps like that. And the side of things where thinking really big can really draw out the negative thinking, these patterns and the objections in your brain to actually taking action by taking these really big leaps. For many of us, that the staying in the realm of the achievable doesn't necessarily unearth those, because depending on what you consider achievable, it can be just like, oh, it's a little bit more than what you did before, so it doesn't really stretch you. So for certain personality types, and if you're listening to me, you're probably close to my personality type, this kind of stuff might definitely appeal. Of course, the rest of the system works. If you want to do SMART goals, you absolutely can. However, I like brave goals. They're just a little bit more exciting. However, there's still a realm of like, oh, that's too brave for me right now. Here's the brave I'm ready at. Like, here's the leap that I'm ready. So we create a plan. We create a plan and some systems and routines to make that plan happen. So we actually plan it out for the following quarter. and we look at the fears and the negative thoughts that come up, and we reframe them so that you can take more action during the doing phase, the implementation phase. So we have this split into 3 days. Day one is brave goal setting. And this is the fun part, right? Where we do like the meditation and visualization. We get you in touch with your future self. We do a couple of these activities of like what you're doing now versus what you're doing, future you could be doing, and really kind of get in touch with that side. It's the dreaming, it's the fun part. Well, it's all the fun part, but it's the first fun part. There we go. Then we get into day two. So you've had like a whole overnight to think about it, and it's very exciting and dreaming and all that good stuff. So then day two, we get into the actual planning out, the planning process, and some, do's and don'ts for some of that stuff, and then the thoughts and the reframing process there. Now, day three, we look at brave goals and getting more done. So how to get more done with this process, right? How to get the most out of it moving forward. And that's also kind of looking at the whole check-in process, which is something that I had trouble fitting into the 90-minute session. And it also looks at we look at doing some live coaching if people are interested in that. So yeah, that would be just so much fun. I'm very, very looking forward to that. Right. So as I said before, you've got the 3 30-minute live classes. Recordings are available June 24, 25, 26, 5 p.m. US Eastern Time. That's New York time. Or June 25th, 26th, 27th, 7 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. As I said, recordings are available. If you don't want to do the split classes like this and you actually want to do, hey, give me the 90-minute recording, I want to do this on my own, then you can get in touch with me and get a copy of a previous one of these. Like I said, I've run them before, and this is a great process to do things like to spot these patterns, do things like stop overworking, getting your Sundays back, right? Big leaps like launches or just increasing your coaching clients, that kind of stuff. Some of the previous attendees went from, I can't sell in December to running a masterclass the following week. A lot of people are like, oh, I just realized I want more space in my business, right? These are some of the things. Some other people have said, oh, wow, I never take the time for this process to really think and connect and dream and visualize. It's like, oh, yeah. So yeah, that's some examples of, some of the feedback that I've had from previous times running it, and I've run a number of these. But this is the first time I'm splitting it up into the 3 classes like this, and I think it will be a lot of fun and a lot easier to digest and just easier to kind of work through. So let me recap the key takeaways from today's episode. Oh, sorry, I should say again, if you want to join the masterclasses, find information on the website, tiffanygstudios.com. Come and find me at Instagram at tiffanygstudios. Ask for the links. Go find the Facebook group, Business Bravery with Tiff. That's probably the easiest way to join. And yeah, like all the details will be on Instagram and in the Facebook group, and probably on the other social medias as well. So all of the good stuff. All right, so the key takeaways for this episode. Sorry, I just had to take a small pause there. All right, so recapping the key takeaways. So building a business that serves you in terms of working hours, energy, and work-life balance. And I talked about that in terms of, okay, not having work on Sundays, the changing the Fridays to being a planning day. So, and planning for the week ahead. And also part of that planning day can be planning, the month ahead and some of that good planning stuff. And also watching my energy in terms of like not scheduling too much during the week and having to schedule less so that I don't feel like I have to catch up on work and can't have sort of planning focused tasks on a Friday. So some other parts of that is like finding your ideal work day, your work week, and your work month. And like I talked about sort of planning ahead, having sort of systems and routines, especially around the content and my podcast content. And one of those weeks being like, okay, so yes, we have content creation Monday, but we're also going to have content creation Tuesday. And some of the planning tasks and the prepping podcast stuff for editing can happen on other days and happen, at different times than they were. So they're not happening on a Sunday. And yeah, just the the value of having those systems and routines to make things easier and reduce decision making. So, and I know that might sound strange, but I kind of really like having things like content creation Monday. And I mean, some people, like somebody I was talking to recently, I suggested, you might want an A week and a B week. And A week is for clients and B week is for behind the scenes and content stuff so that you can make that happen. And at the moment I'm doing my calls with clients every second week. So that means I can maybe have a bit more of that A week, B week, and some of that stuff too. So it's awesome. So other things that we covered today were spotting the negative thoughts, understanding your own patterns with thoughts and procrastination and such. And so I talked about that in terms of the patterns of me overworking, me scheduling too much for Mondays and Tuesdays, and then having to spend the time catching up on that stuff on Thursdays and Fridays. And actually, I guess what I didn't really say was I already had things planned for the Thursdays and Fridays, so that stuff would often get pushed to other times, or I'd be trying to do it all together and it's probably why I had the Wednesdays off. Like Monday, Tuesday were big days, and then I need Wednesday off to recover. Then Thursday and Friday were big days, and then I'd have Saturday off to recover. And then I felt like I needed to have Sunday to plan ahead so that I wouldn't fall into that trap. Oh, that's interesting. I just worked that out. You never know what's going to come up in these episodes, guys. What's going to come up in the recap of the key takeaways. So yeah, you can sort of see those patterns. You can also look at the negative thoughts. And, I noticed like some of those of like, you won't feel on top of things. You won't be able to get it done. You're going to fail this week and some of that kind of stuff. So yeah, just again, the power of the Business Bravery Framework or, any of these kinds of tools for doing, mindset work or, journaling, meditation, some of that stuff. The other thing, the recap for today's episode, key takeaway is like how to work through situations when your subconscious isn't on board and what that looks like sort of before and after. And I was talking about this in terms of like my subconscious definitely wasn't on board when I think I started having was it week 2 where I had the wobbles and it was like, this isn't who I am, this isn't how I work. And that's definitely a lot of the subconscious at play. And you can find that it's harder to take action on things when the subconscious isn't on board with what you want. And that could be the times when you're in a launch and you're unable to send the replays because the subconscious is feeling fear and it wants to protect you, right? That's usually what's going on. Yeah. So it's just because it can't differentiate the difference between people saying no to your offer versus a lion coming out to kill you. It feels exactly the same to the subconscious. And so like it's kind of working against you while you're trying to like sell and promote because logically, if you go and make more offers, people are going to say yes. And yes, it's just fascinating. All of this stuff that when I didn't know it, made life so much harder. So I hope you have enjoyed this perhaps too in-depth look into the minutiae of how I run my weeks. But the times I've been talking to people in the last few weeks and I was like, oh, I'm working on reclaiming my Sundays. And a few people are like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I need to do that too. So I feel like I might not be the only one who needs to do this. For you, it might be your Saturdays, it might be your Tuesday nights, or some other time that you want to reclaim, or you just might feel like you're just doing all of the hours, but it doesn't feel fun anymore. So you want to change things and pull back on your working hours. And that is this process of just being disciplined about, okay, what's working hours, what's not working hours, saying no, making sure you have plans in place so that you can make sure that happens. Okay. So this stuff that I've been talking to, this is what I help my clients do, as I'm sure you can imagine. Behavior change like comes from shifting into a new identity, getting the subconscious on board, and all of that is worked into the Business Bravery Framework on that side. I also help clients with the marketing side because I have 10 years of experience with marketing, and so that strategy and knowledge piece is definitely there as well because I've been doing a lot of it for years, but I found that the best marketing strategy in the world cannot overcome a situation where you just don't feel confident in yourself, where you don't feel confident enough to go out and really show up. And I'm not talking about the situations where it's like, oh, I haven't done this before, I feel a little nervous. I'm talking about situations where your brain remembers times where you felt really less than and unworthy. And so you're trying to go out and pretend like you don't feel less than and unworthy. And yet people can just, they pick up on that energy, they pick up on that subtext, they feel that something is off and that perhaps you're even like maybe trying too hard or something like that. Like it's just, yeah, I've not found a situation, believe me, if I could have, I would have, because I spent years ignoring mindset and just trying to work on the marketing strategy. If I could have made it work, I would have. However, for many of us, especially where the subconscious is really trying to keep us safe, and you know, for many of us, we might have had stuff that happened in childhood that the subconscious remembers that, yeah, it just really wants to keep us safe, and that can make it really hard to go out and promote your business and that kind of thing. So that's where the Business Bravery Framework really comes in. And that's what I help my clients do, right? We work through this stuff fast. We, shift fast just because I spent so long struggling with these things so that you don't have to. All right. If you are so dazzled by this episode that you want to work with me right away, you don't want to wait for things happening, June classes and all of that good stuff, book in a Bravery booster call. It's a 60-minute one-on-one coaching call with me that I offer to many of you, right? I offer I put the offer out there for anyone who wants to take advantage, to see what it's like to work with me, to be coached by me. And that's 60 minutes focused on you to just unravel those webs of worry and, yeah, just get moving on something and see what it's like to work with me. So, yeah, get in touch. You can find me at Tiffany G Studios on Instagram. Let me know what you thought of this podcast episode. If this helped you, if you're going to change something, I love to hear all of that good stuff. So please keep in touch. And that's it from me. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the Business Bravery podcast. Has this episode inspired you to do something brave? Even if it's only send a difficult email, please share it with me on Instagram or other social media channels. Feel free to tag me at Tiffany G Studios. That's TIFFANY. G for golf, STUDIOS, no spaces, no underscores, etc. Or you can use the hashtag Business Bravery Podcast so that I can cheer you on and together we can inspire other coaches and course creators to do brave things in their business and life. Now, I'm Tiffany and I'll leave you with this one last thing. What's one brave thing you're going to do today? It doesn't have to be big. Even the smallest steps can create the most massive results. So again, feel free to share it with me either publicly or privately so that I can cheer you on. That's it from me. Until next time, bye for now.